It's been nearly 30 years since I moved to Austin, Texas. I like to joke that I come from the cornfields of Ohio to the corn tortillas of Texas, right? And did you know that in the cornfields of Ohio we have the tallest, fastest, steepest roller coaster in the world? I couldn't make that up. In Ohio, Cedar Point. I love roller coasters. There's something about that adrenaline rush and the fear that just floods your body as you're at the top of one of those very tall, fast, steep roller coasters. Shall we see a show of hands? How many of us love roller coasters? How many of us just hate roller coasters and wouldn't get on it if we had to? Got news for you. Fasten your seatbelts, because the roller coaster of Holy Week has begun. Did you sense that? We began Mass on a real high. It's like the tallest point of a roller coaster. People greeted Jesus as the Messiah. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna! They put their cloaks on the ground so that his feet wouldn't touch the ground. They took the palms from the trees and they waved them in the air as a sign of victory. They were greeting the king. It was a real high. But you heard that today is the only day that we have two gospels. What happened in the second gospel? Suddenly, Jesus and all those people were on a real high. In today's gospel, we have the proclamation of Jesus' suffering and death, how he died on the cross. How's that for a roller coaster? From a real high, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna! To the proclamation of Jesus' death. And if you dare join us this week, the roller coaster continues. From Palm Sunday to Holy Thursday in the celebration of the Lord's Supper, to Good Friday when we remember his death, to Easter Sunday when he rises again. It's a roller coaster. The palms that we hold in our hands, shall we grab those palms and hold them in our hands? Because those palms remind us of today's two Gospels. We held them during the proclamation of the first Gospel, when the people had palms that were cut from trees, and they waved those palms. Shall we wave those palms? They waved those palms and said, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna! But do you know what's going to happen to these palms? Look at that palm in your hand and know that if you bring these palms back to us next February, on the last Sunday of winter ordinary time before we get into Lent, what is Father Roy going to do with that palm in your hand? He's going to what? Where do the ashes come from that we use on Ash Wednesday? That palm that you're holding in your hand. Talk about the circle of life, huh? That palm that you hold in your hand, if you bring it on that last Sunday of winter ordinary time before Ash Wednesday, we're going to burn these palms to form ashes. So these same palms that we use to say, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, those palms end up being crushed and burnt. Like today's first reading. Did you hear today's first reading from Isaiah? How it is that God's servant is going to be crushed. How it is that God's servant is going to feel abandoned. Which is why today's responsorial psalm tells us what? My God, why have you abandoned me? Have you ever felt one of those moments in life? I suspect many of us have, if we were honest. When we've cried out, my God, why have you abandoned me? Where are you in all of this? Because those are the last words that we hear from Jesus in today's gospel. Before Jesus is crushed, like those palm branches, he cries out, my God, Why have you abandoned me? And why do we wear those ashes on our foreheads on Ash Wednesday? Because they remind us that life is short and ends in death and ashes. Brothers and sisters, fortunately, that's not the end of the story. Amen? Amen. St. Bonaventure once observed that life is like a circle. The circle of life. I'm feeling an Elton John moment coming up. Because in today's first reading in Paul's letter to the Philippians, what does St. Paul tell us? St. Paul tells us that though he was in the form of God, Christ did not deem equality with God, but what happened? He humbled himself, and he came down to earth. And he died. Yes, he died. But was that the end of the story? No. Because after coming down to earth, the circle continued, and he rose again and ascended into heaven. Hosanna. Hosanna. And that's the victory we celebrate at Easter. Sisters and brothers, siblings, that's what we celebrate this week, the great circle of life, of palms and ashes, of life and death and new life after that. I invite you, I challenge you to join us on Holy Thursday and Good Friday and Holy Saturday as we continue this roller coaster of Holy Week.